Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you with the lovely David Saville this afternoon. Now, I do bring you usually people that I know, but today is a little bit special because this man is one of my dearest friends. I just love him to pieces. So what does he do? He is actually the coach's coach. So if you want to create that career in coaching, if you want to learn very specialized coaching techniques, he's rejected all the regular techniques because he started very much learning for himself, living that philosophy that anything is possible. And if it's possible in your mind, it's possible in reality. Coaching some of the highest level people out there, creating a massive result in their lives, and now helping other people to deliver that same kind of energy within them. As a person who's full of energy himself, we've often talked about going to Edinburgh Festival together and probably being the one other person on the planet that each other know that can keep up with that level of schedule and energy and all that. So he's been just such a joy to my life, and it's a delight to welcome him to Inspired Online today and share him on this platform as we have on the London events. So hello, welcome back actually. And I'm going to ask you the same question that you know, but in a slightly different way. If you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
And of course, this changes depending on what's most important, right? So I was thinking about that, and I think the thing that came to me was this, and it's the fact that and this is going from, by the way, I've coached close to 1,000 people, right, and run thousands of workshops and thousands of people at my workshops, right. So I've got a good section of society from all different levels for this to come to my awareness, and that is. If you get to the end of your life and you've lived a successful life, a beautiful family, your career has been amazing, and you look back and you think life couldn't have been any better, you're probably still only about 1% of what was possible for you. Because the truth is, what we're often looking for some big change, the things that are outside there, like the big adventures, right? People often go on, go traveling and all these wonderful things, right? Or the big events, the big life-changing events, retreats. I've run retreats. So those things are wonderful. But what a lot of people aren't paying attention to is the opportunities within every single day. The tiny moments. In fact, I posted a song on my profile earlier because as I was thinking about what to bring to this, and the song was by Camila Cabello. And it's, I can't remember what it's, it's called Who Are You, I think, or In the Dark it might be called, but essentially it's, who are you in the dark? When you're alone, no one's watching. It's like, who are you really? How do you truly feel about something? What do you feel about your life, about your relationships, about the things that you've done and the things that you are doing? When it's silent and dark, who are you? And that could be a really powerful way to connect to what you need to do. Like one of my most favorite questions to ask people is this, and it is, what in your life needs most attention? And the truth is that will change depending on what's most important to you in that moment. But the thing that I want to really share here, and I think it's very, very important, especially when a lot of people are on lockdown right now, whatever happens, right, there may be certain restrictions involved, and people feel like they need things to change to be able to do the things they want, to live the life that they dream of, and all of these things, right? It can happen later. Like the world's on pause is a common term which has been shared, which is just silly, really. I can understand it, but it's also silly, right? Life doesn't pause. But the truth is, it's like, even if you're alone in a room and you don't have anyone with you, you've got opportunities to become better. You have opportunities to become more. Because the truth is, we have one of the things that I've noticed in myself and others is, from a child, right? If you look at a child, the way it learns to walk and the way it learns to talk, it just keeps doing it really badly. And until eventually it does it well and maybe becomes Usain Bolt, right? It's like, but that childish playfulness and experimentation, and if people laugh at a child when they're doing this, they don't look at themselves and go, oh no, I mustn't walk, maybe I'm walking funny. No, they laugh back, right? Because it's hilarious. So they laugh at themselves. They don't have the judgment from others that then becomes self-judgment, right? It hasn't been imposed. So from that childish, like anything's possible, I'm just going to try whatever and fall on my face 1,000 times, I'm never going to stop trying. That is that. So as we grow up, we gradually get limits on things, from other people, from ourselves too. That means we get to adulthood and we've got a certain flow that we've moved into. A certain flow is probably the wrong word, but a certain channel. There you go, a channel of life that we have merged into. And within that channel, life, we experience in a certain way, a certain bandwidth of life that we've often created. But that what we don't necessarily, we're not aware of, at least not deeply enough, is just how many of those limits are there that we cannot even know. A number of times I've been coaching people and they're even scared to imagine what their future could hold beyond, far ahead. They're scared because, of course, what if it fails? What do people think? What if, the fear of losing what you have, right, for something you want in the future? There's a whole bunch of fears related that stop someone, even in the quiet moments when no one's around, even just thinking about what they want. And so what I think is one of it's why people talk about layers, I think, when it comes to coaching and personal development, right? Think of the layers as these tiny little patterns and these tiny little limiters that we've put on ourselves throughout our lives. How they got there doesn't actually matter too much. What matters is that we pay attention within the moment. So a beautiful example of this, because when I'm doing my coaching during one of the first calls to figure out if I want to work with someone, we do this, and if they want to work with me, I essentially call it like a diagnostic kind of thing, diagnostic and prescription. So essentially, I'm exploring their life, like mapping it out, figuring out the variables, who the players are, where their limits are, and I'm looking for a significant pattern, something that a significant limiter is what I'm looking for, something that affects them. And then I prescribe a solution, like something they can go do to break that pattern before we meet again and we have a proper conversation about whether we'll work together. So I recently had this very, very thing. And during the messages before the call, there'd been some strangeness in the message. Like I'd ask something, there'd be a space, and then when it came back, it didn't seem quite right. Like it wasn't a natural response. And so I shared this with her and I asked her what was going on. I sensed what it was, but I asked her this. And what it appeared is that she would never just respond in the moment. She'd have to consider carefully her wording. She wants to make certain it's the right thing to say. And she developed this when she was very, very young. When she went to a different country and she couldn't speak the language. So it was kind of like a fear protection was created of like getting it wrong, which decades later, she's fluent in multiple languages, right? It's not a problem in that way. But the pattern is still there. And of course, how does that pattern play out in her relationships, in the way that she interacts with people and all of these things? And so when I shared this with her and then offered her some things to do, like if you open a message, to actually just respond immediately, or don't open the message, and then when you're with friends, like challenge yourself to just respond, even whatever whatever you feel, to just respond. I got a message like a week later, just the liberation that she'd experienced of actually like one of the deepest conversations she'd ever had with one of her closest friends, because she'd opened up about this and allowed herself to let go in this way. Her connection with her clients, with her friends, with family, all of it started to change as a result of exploring this tiny little seemingly insignificant pattern of I'm going to wait I'm going to think more before I respond, right? And so the significance of that pattern, and that's just one pattern, right, among however many that she has or we all have. So it's like if we commit ourselves to exposing these and to working through them, to break through them completely, we've got no idea of the human being we can become on the other side of that. That's why like even the most successful of us who've been doing the development will still be at 1%. So like, let's just find out what's possible, right? Let's find out where we can go, and let's use those tiny moments to do so. The little niggles, right? If somebody was to you let someone out, for instance, and they like swear at you or something because you didn't say thank you, or vice versa, right? You get annoyed because they didn't thank you, and it's like, well, what's that saying about you in that moment? It's like that's a problem for you. That's not a problem for them. Who knows what's going on for them? So we're being exposed and meeting ourselves all the time, but we're often rushing too fast to be able to notice. One other thing as well, like one of my clients, he's in Thailand and he's running these workshops and he's building this life. So he's barely been at home, right? So he's got his tiny little box room, and it's all well and good till the lockdown happened, right? He's barely ever there. Then of course lockdown.
Oops.
Right? And it's like barely bigger than the room I'm in now, the entire space.
Yeah.
And so what he found that extremely challenging. Now, he missed an opportunity because he came back to the UK. He's got a big house here that he's now in, and it's better, right? But he missed the chance, right? He didn't what he'd find is that when he was there during the day, he'd get a build-up of energy, like frustration and, and like just something inside him, like he didn't want to be there. He felt imprisoned in some way. He felt stuck. And so what he'd do is he'd go out in the evening, right? He'd wait all day and he'd go out in the evening, and that would be his like freedom moment, right? Seeming freedom, like fake freedom. But what he missed was, because now he's back home, he can't do this. He missed the opportunity with whatever he was experiencing, and to purge and break whatever pattern it was that meant sitting in a room alone is a problem, It's for many hours and days. It's like that is a poor relationship to life and what's going on. The fact that because it wasn't a prison, he could leave whenever he wanted, there's limits, but he could leave and do things.
Yeah.
And plus he's got access to the world, right, through this kind of medium. So that was purely and meet himself and purge through that pattern forever, because that will be significant, So go on.
So I was going to say, one of the threads in what you're saying is partly that we just need to be more observant with what's going on within us, and partly it's almost like a do the opposite thing. What would it be your instinct not to do?
Yeah.
And would you say that's how you make your diagnostics generally?
That's very useful. So I don't know if you can hear my dog's going crazy right now.
I can indeed. The dogs are thinking, you're right, Shay.
Clearly. They agree with you, definitely.
Yeah, I got the ultimate validation. It's like, our daddy's not talking anymore. Shut up.
I think because my mum's here, she made the mistake of leaving a door open, or maybe I made the mistake of not locking a door so they couldn't get out. And the doorbell went. Can you hear me okay, though?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. The diagnostic thing depends. It just depends on what's present. But a very useful way of approaching a pattern is to go opposite, definitely. It's like a common one is this. It's like a lot of people, particularly in the UK, but also in other places, say sorry too much for no good reason. It means nothing.
It's a very British habit, actually.
It's like bump into someone, like someone bumps into you and you say, I'm sorry. So yeah, it's like, what you're sorry for existing in that space that meant that someone whacked into, right? It's like,
yeah, I have done that. I'm sure
yeah, so have I.
Yeah.
So, right. I remember challenging a client, say for a week, don't say sorry ever. Just purge it out of your system. Go the opposite way. Don't say sorry for anything. She couldn't do it. Went 24 hours, I think. And she over time, of course, if you dedicate yourself, it's definitely something I do personally, and I recommend my clients do. Whatever the pattern is, do the opposite, so you can go to an extreme, a polar opposite, until you no longer need to. And then, of course, you can find some nice, beautiful place in the middle. Because it's not, obviously, that wouldn't be healthy either, right? To never say sorry, because sometimes there's damn good reasons to say sorry, right? But yeah, go to a polar opposite, and then find out where your sweet spot actually is. That's a really useful thing to do. Yeah.
So if we were going to leave people at home with, something to do right now to discover one of their patterns and break it, is there any exercises that you could give them, that they could try this evening with their family or whatever?
Yeah, there's loads. So I'll speak to the people who are alone first. So if you're alone, shut everything off, have absolute silence, be in the dark, alone and quiet for an extended period of time. If you meditate regularly, do it for a couple of hours, do it for a serious amount of time. But don't do a meditation allow yourself to think. Like this is like a deliberate thing of being aware of being, and then to feel is more important actually. Allow yourself to be present to what you actually feel in that moment. So that's what anyone can do. And the longer you do that, of course, the more you'll meet. It's why those silent meditation retreats are so popular and so painful for a lot of people, right? Because when you can't speak, you can't write, you can't have anyone, no distractions, nothing in getting into your brain. What is left? Only you and what you feel and what you think. Then when it comes to families, for instance, right, this is very, very simple. It's just speak to your families. just have conversations with your family and notice. And this is the thing, right? Because most people, when they're living together, you've got a lot of things are happening with couples right now who have been on top of each other in a way they're not used to, or with kids, right? Pay attention to how you react. Like, ask yourself this question: do you need the person to change their behavior for you to feel okay? Whether that be your child, whether that be a partner. Do you need them to behave differently? You know, because if you do, that's a problem for you. It doesn't mean that maybe it would be a good idea for them to change, and maybe, especially if it's a child, there may be some correction in their behavior to help them become a healthy human being. But you need them to change. Are you? And also, this is a good one for parents actually. Do you shout at your children? Just like go from zero to shouting? Yeah, because they're good with parents. I've worked with quite a few parents, and one of my friends is a beautiful parents. I've got beautiful friends who are beautiful parents, right? There's a measured increase in volume, right, that can work very well. If it's like, look, I'm speaking to you and you haven't listened yet, so I'm going to say it again. It gets stronger till it gets to the point of loud. But are you going straight to loud? If you are going straight to loud, that's a problem. That's a pattern. That's not you being of service to your child or yourself in that way. So there you go. That's 3. Obviously, there's many, but essentially,
I love that.
Where there are human beings, there are patterns.
Where there are human beings, there's patterns. Beautiful. I'm going to go back to something that you said in the beginning, and it was about who are you. I'm just curious as to how you discovered that first, because you haven't always been a coach, although you're a very good and very passionate one. How did you discover these processes?
So that's that's a lifelong journey right there.
It is. But let's tell us a bit about it, because I know it's fascinating.
Okay, so for most of my life, really, like I always felt different to everyone anyway. Like as a child, I was talking to Mum about this the other day. Although I had friends, I didn't actually feel like we were together. I didn't feel like I've never had like where I felt like there was a we. Never had that. I don't know why. There was just always a separation between me and the people I was with. And growing up, I got a lot of anxiety, and so that developed into panic attacks. Developed also into like a body dysmorphia thing in my late teens, which was like the reason why I felt people looked at me was because I was like physically disfigured in some way. It was just a painful physical experience which represented how I felt about myself, right? Moving forwards, I worked at the same company for 17 years, right? Same journey to work, without having any aspirations or thinking I could do better. In fact, thinking I didn't have anything to offer. And simultaneously caring for my father, as you know, through his Parkinson's, which I think saved me, to be honest with you. It was like, if you've ever had a parent or someone that you've had to just care for, it helps you. I think it makes you as a human being personally. It's like I could have gone down a very dark path, I think, because I did have depression. I did have a lot of anxiety, a lot of things that could have led me down a certain path. I think my father saved me in that sense, or needing to help care for him, because I had to step up. I had to do what was right. I had to, there's so many things I had to do there. And so some of the things that I've learned would have been through just doing them. Being in a hospital with him and sleeping overnight, at the hospital. It would have been like caring for him when he could no longer take food and water through his mouth, and having to feed him and do medication. It's my mother, who has been throughout my entire life, all I've seen of her is stepping up and being the person that does what's needed. She never asks what she needs. She's like, okay, who needs my help and how can I help? That was a shining example I've had my entire life. So that's huge what I witnessed in her.
Yes.
And then, of course, going through that, just going, you know, I've done many things to do with trainings of NLP and hypnosis, and I've been coached by so many people in so many different kinds of ways. So going on my own personal ventures, of course, you know, cycling 150 miles in a day, for instance, but then cycling home, actually, so doing 310 miles on my own for like 4 days. That was one of the most transformative things I ever did, because I was alone, right? It was like alone in the dark. Well, I had to meet myself then when my body was broken, because I wasn't physically fit enough to do that by any means.
I remember you doing that, actually. It was amazing.
Yeah, but I wasn't fit.
Yeah.
I wasn't a cyclist or anything. I'd done some spin classes, right?
Yeah.
That was it. And then I hit the road, and
Yeah.
and it broke my physical body in lots of ways. Like I wasn't, for the first few days, actually, my body kind of found a rhythm after about 3 or 4 days. But it's the alone time doing that was very important. And then, of course, as far as the processes go, well, I've been working with coaches since 2016. So they've been asking me, or actually working with them and seeing why isn't it working? Why, you know, because I'm like, one of the things I do is I get them to coach others, and I'm watching. I'm like, why are you not seeing this? So then, of course, realizing what I'm doing, like how I'm paying attention, like these 7 elements of pure coaching, for instance, is something that I've emerged. Like essentially, it's how to be deeply present in a coaching session, and then how to very carefully, like with minimal intervention, like take someone deeper into their psychology, you know, and a whole bunch of things that have emerged through me teaching and training coaches, actually, and running workshops and things. You know, 500 workshops, you kind of learn a few things. You know, 1,000 clients,
just a bit.
You know what I mean? And of course, I'm obsessed with coaching and with excellence and with figuring out how to transform a human being, myself, obviously, first, and then everyone else around me, you know?
Yeah.
So yes, though that's kind of the short version of how.
And I have to say, like, you know, the energy kind of shows and it expands, and it's wonderful. I know this question's also quite close to your heart, and I'm curious to see what you're going to say to it today. But how do you make the impossible possible? Because you're someone that knows that secret sauce, as I like to think I do too. But
I'm gonna quote Han Solo for this one. Han Solo from Star Wars, right? His famous quote of his is, "I don't ask if it's possible till I've done it." You know? And it's that. It's like, it doesn't really matter what people say. Because I remember I heard someone say this. I can't remember who it was. It might be Wim Hof, actually. And he said, we only know what's possible because of historical evidence. It doesn't mean anything for what's possible in the future, really. It can be, you know, it's just like, that's what we've done. So that's what we understand is possible. And so because of that, that's what I bring to my life, and that's what I bring to my clients' life. And of course, when it comes to clients and their dreams, when they say they want stuff, a lot of the stuff they think is impossible seems quite ordinary to me now, having done everything, right, and having worked with so many people, right, like you and I. You know, when people say, like, they've got these big dreams and they're like, "Oh, I don't think I can ever do it," we're like, what do you mean? Like, get started, you know? It's like, you can do it right now, right? It's here for you. You can take a step towards that. You may need to learn some things. You may need to gather resources and support and whatever's needed. Essentially, what you need is a desire that you care enough about what it is, because it's going to get hard. You're going to feel like you can't do it. You're going to have people tell you it's not going to work, because people don't understand unless they've done it themselves, right? And if you're doing something that's never been done, well, you've got no frame of reference. And so it's more about creating the resolve within yourself to do what's needed to find out if it's possible, because you don't even know. So assume it is, go for it, and then the evidence will tell you eventually whether it was possible or not.
And usually it probably is, right?
For many, 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 many things. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, imagination is also capped by what people see and do. So the impossible they're not even going for is that that impossible anyway, right? There's far more to tap into, you know, for every single one of us. You know, it's why it's so important. 1%, right? We're only going to, if you get to the end of your life, you're only 1% of what's possible. So we'll bring in as much as you can now. And if we have a whole bunch of human beings who are pushing towards that 100% because they want to become so much better in every way, well, what could that create? You know?
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you dream bigger, you know, and expand the mind to be able to even hold, you know, those bigger visions?
Well, there's different parts to this, and of course there's many different ways of doing it, so I'll just share this for now. So breaking these patterns is very important, because a pattern essentially does this: it focuses your attention, you know. And so like this pattern I mentioned earlier with the person who was holding back before messaging, right? well, that's making, this is her life. But then a week later, suddenly it was a bit like this. So that all by itself enables her to see a bit further. And then of course, there's also something that the unseen too, like you cannot know what you're missing out on because you're looking at the world like this. Once you are aware that there is more that's possible because you've broken a pattern, because you're doing some work, it's like you are able to look and see things that seem so far away are just here. 6 degrees of separation, or 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon, which is much more fun, right? Means that we are connected to every human being on the planet just by six people, right? 6 people deep. Well, whatever you want to do will involve human beings. And if you want something and you're willing to do what it takes to get it, and you're willing to tell people, you're willing to be seen to fail, well, then those 6 degrees could support you in achieving the impossible that you dream of, you know?
Yeah.
Then of course there's the loosening up of imagination, and that you can play games with that kind of stuff. Like I get people to do is just say, what do you want? And just to keep saying stuff like that. I want this and want that. And then when they get to the end, you go, okay, what's next? And what's next? And you just keep doing that until they've broken themselves beyond what they thought they wanted. And then you get to some real juicy stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love doing that too. Yeah. And you know, games it doesn't need to be the big stuff, because we do it in Edinburgh, for example. I think we almost have a bit of a laugh with this. It's like the show's sold out. We've done this quite a lot, haven't we? And we're like, yeah, but we're going to get in.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we've just set the intention, and we pretty much always have.
Yeah, I think once we didn't, but then it wasn't even a show.
Yeah, we didn't even want to go.
No, we didn't even want it that bad. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think my favourite one was like, the show's sold out, you can't get in. The show's sold out, you can't get in. And we go to the box office, and they're like, well, actually, someone's left some tickets here. Do you want them? Free of charge.
2 free tickets to like Nina Conti. That was right.
That was front row.
Yeah. Front row seats. Yeah.
So you never know.
Yes.
Unless
exactly.
you try.
Yeah, and put yourself in the position for opportunities to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you do that, actually? You know, how would you put yourself in those sorts of places?
Obviously, it depends on what you want, but essentially, by assuming if like for instance, if we had decided that it wasn't possible to go to that Nina Conti thing, right? It's just, there's no possible chance. Then we wouldn't have been there. We wouldn't have asked the question. Sometimes it's as simple as asking the question, right? Because that's all it was. I asked. That was it. I said, we'd love to go see it. They say they're sold out. And because I had bothered to ask, because I didn't assume the no, I didn't take the no for an answer.
Yeah, and we actually turned up at the venue, to be fair. Yeah,
right? Exactly. We actually went there with the expectation that this is going to happen and could happen. Thing is, if it didn't happen, because it may not sometimes, right? That's not that. At least we went to the point of trying, right? Most people don't go far enough. They don't try hard enough. They don't try enough times. You know, that's often what stops people. It's just, if you fail a few times, they just stop. Whereas a child will fall flat on its face 1,000, and it doesn't even occur that it won't walk, right?
Yeah.
It's bringing that to life and the things that you want.
Yeah. And I just want to add this, actually, bring that to the people around you, because if it was your baby and after, you know, a few times it didn't walk, you're not going to say, oh, you're never going to walk again. Sod that. That's just not a conversation that the parent is going to have with the child. So how about, you know, we nurture in the people around us that possibility, that magic, that, you know, when you're supporting your friends, I have their back. You know, and be like, all right, you can do this. So
exactly,
that's what you do actually in your coaching practice.
Damn right. Yeah. And with everyone, actually. Like my nephew, you know, he's 23. He's a barman, can't do that anymore. Well, now he's actually creating a new marketing business out from scratch, which has begun to work, you know, within a few weeks. You know, that's really cool. But
well, with you as an uncle, obviously it was going to.
Of course. And he's an extraordinary boy. You know,
lovely. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with us today?
So I think it's very important that you are in charge of your life. We're not in charge of what happens all the time by any means. Things happen that are bad, things that happen out of our control. But we do get to choose how we respond, and we do get to choose whether we're committed to becoming the best version, the most extraordinary person we can be. What I would say is you've got no concept of how extraordinary you could be, even if you already think you are. Because, you know, every year I'm like, life seems to be the best it could be. And yet I still feel like I'm barely starting, because there's so much more that happens, so much more changes. You know, the more that opens up, the more that's possible. You know, it's why I work with clients for years, actually, because when they get to like the big thing that they thought they wanted, now they've opened up and, oh my God, there's a whole entire universe they didn't know was there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's that, like, do the work every day, because you cannot imagine how great life can become.
That's beautiful. What a lovely note to end on. Imagine it, and then imagine it bigger, and make it possible, because you can, right? How can people get in touch with you?
So simple as Facebook, David Saville 78, my profile, just connect with me there. And Instagram, I am David Saville, which I really like that, right?
Oh, I love it. It's like I am James Bond. Oh, that's your tagline. I love it. We'll put those links up on facebook.com/inspired stage, as if you can't find David anyway. But for now, thank you so much for your time. It's been a joy, as always, to connect with you, and hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, hopefully.
Lots of love.
Thank you.